She was an extraordinary partner in building the special needs clinic with myself and Claude Mellons. Virginia, you're here somewhere. I think you were there in the beginning. We were growing something that was designed to take care of kids and families all together in one place who were bending and breaking under the incredible strain of AIDS. It was 1992. We were 2 years away from the prevention of transmission from mothers to children. We were 4 years away from any effective treatment of HIV and AIDS. Most of the people, adults, children, mothers, fathers, children we worked with died. Sheila was a true social worker. She got a master's degree in social work and a master's degree in public health at Columbia. She was a true social worker in the sense that she used social systems. I would say she worked social systems so that they actually helped people. She did this in little ways, and she did this in big ways. And the range of her skills was phenomenal. From helping to build a permanent funding stream for the special needs clinic. This came out of nowhere. That the special needs clinic is still there under the able leadership of Warren Ng, who you could hear from in a minute. Sheila built that. She knew how to work these systems. I see why, listening to what everyone's saying. But this wasn't from the outside. This was from the inside. So big things she could do. She could write grants. She could manipulate data. She could report. She could work with finances. Any piece of bureaucratic, I'll watch my tongue because there's so many children in the room, you know what, that was thrown in her way, she could get through or over or around. And that was crucial in that time, because we had to be able to take care of these kids and families. Little things, they're not so little, but I don't know how many people were able to have funerals, people with no resources. You know, funerals cost about $6,000. I don't know how many people she made funerals for, so they could take their loved ones and respect them in the proper way. We paid for a lot of coffins. I have no idea where that money came from. She was an extraordinary clinician, therapist. Extraordinary. People loved her. People trusted her. People listened to her. People had absolutely no reason to believe anybody in the healthcare system was there for them. Let her help them. And her gifts with children were extraordinary. I mean, obviously, we know her gifts with children are extraordinary, but the way she could talk to little kids and teenagers about what was really happening to them was amazing. One story, we all figured out pretty early on in this work that children were a little bit closer to the other side than adults. And they would often have either visual or auditory experiences of their parents after death. And they wouldn't tell you about it because they knew it was weird. But if you asked them, they would. Sheila came to my office one day and told me this story. You know, Jen, 2 weeks ago I saw this little boy, and I asked him if he'd had any experience with his parents since they died. And he said he saw his mother sitting on the end of his bed. And she said, in her amazing way, "How was that for you?" And the little boy said, "It's okay. I would be scared if she talked to me." The next week, another child came in, a boy this time, whose father had died, and she asked the same question, and the boy said, "Well, I hear him calling my voice." And she said, "How is that for you?" And he said, "It's okay, but it's nice, but I would be scared if I ever saw him." Children knew that their most precious and meaningful secrets were safe with Sheila, and so did adults. So this was busy work. She did. And she did this at the same time she was raising her extraordinary children with George. Caitlin, I think you were 12 or something when I met you. She had her own little room in the back of the house, keep her away from the boys. And the food, people talk about the food. I remember going over for dinner there on multiple occasions, and huge quantities of delicious food would come out of the kitchen and feed these. She once said, "Every pound that boy has on him, I put on him." And her children were with us in our work, too. We weren't passing you around, Caitlin, but you were there. Matthew automated our medical record twice in the mid-90s, a great breakthrough that made it possible for us to be as successful as we were. All the kids would come to our events and help out. I think it was you, Harpo, that said, "Why hire help when you can grow it?" There's a lot of love in that family. So, my partner and I, Barbara, came to see Sheila right before she died, the Friday before she died. And it was a sad thing to walk into that house, but so much love and so much grace in the care that was given to her in the end of her life. We went in to see her in her room, and George had actually told me he knew she was near the end of her life, and she was pretty unresponsive. So we sat, one on each side of her, and started to talk, and read her the note from Rusty Shameless, who was her co-trainer at Chickatelli, who used to call her his co-pilot. And then Barbara started talking about the Garifuna. I think I'm pronouncing that right, close enough, which is some relatively obscure group of immigrants from Central America. Sheila was always shocked that Barbara knew who they were. And Barbara began to talk about how there was one woman who was dying, and she needed to be buried in her wedding dress, and she didn't have that wedding dress, and how Sheila managed, as usual, to make that happen. And Sheila kind of woke up and said, "It had to be white." And she pulled herself back from wherever she was going, and she was there with us for a few minutes, and she was herself, that fierce presence with that wonderful twinkle in her eye. It was a great gift. Now, this is obviously a terrible, terrible loss for those of us who know and love Sheila. But I know Sheila is all right, because all the love she's given to everyone over her life so endlessly is waiting for her on the other side. She has a lot of friends who are angels. So Sheila, dear, you more than did your part. Go in peace. We will all miss you.